Welcome to TRS. We are live. Oh, did we have a comment? Was that what you're saying, Zaz, earlier?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. I was like, I know how much you love Stargate because you shoehorn it in every one of our episodes.
I love Stargate, but I love Star Trek. You just pay attention. Stargate, I do love. You were on Stargate, and I'm going to lead into this one for you. You were in 3 episodes of Stargate Universe, which is actually one of my, I think, people will disagree with me. Universe was the best Stargate franchise to me. It was a better story, and everything felt more genuine to me. I don't know, something about it. You're in 3 episodes, and in your final scene, you and Palmer go through the Stargate, and you never get seen again. The show got canceled. Was there talk about bringing you back as a bigger character because they really set that up? Like, that's the way Stargate always worked is, we'll be back in 2 years, and this guy's going to be somebody else.
Well, it's so interesting
talk of that?
Because all they had planned was season 1, and the answer is very simply, they're like, you and Palmer are going to be marooned on this planet, but you're not dead. And I was like, so as you just alluded to, everything's always open to whatever, The coolest part about that job was that we got to shoot on the white sands of New Mexico, which is a very sort of unique place. And we got to shoot a scene. There's a helicopter scene in that where they had a real helicopter, and it was just a very, very unique and very cool experience. And I had a great time on the show. I met some people who are lifelong friends on that show. And 4 days after I wrapped the New Mexico part, which was the end of my time on that show, I got on a plane and went to Thailand for 2 months as a gift to myself. Those are my 2 stories about that. And also that Robert Carlyle is probably one of the coolest people on planet Earth.
Nice. This is when you started writing, I believe, in your career, or like when your writing started, becoming projects that were getting filmed. What inspired you to start writing?
That trip to Thailand. So it's so funny. Your timing is perfect. So when I finished Stargate, I was living in like a 36th floor condo in downtown Vancouver, had a very good life, was making a nice living as an actor, and I was miserable. I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on. So I had my now wife, then sort of on off again girlfriend sort of thing, decided she was going to go to Bali in Thailand for a couple months. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. I'd love to do something like that. And she just looked at me very plainly and goes, then do it. And I was like, I think I will. So I ended up going on my own trip. Our trips crossed over for about 10 days, but I went on a trip then to Thailand and spent 2 months for the first time just traveling, backpacking, being in a country where, it's very different from the United States, something I'd always wanted to do. Interestingly, right before I went on the trip, I sort of discovered why I never did. When I told my friends and family what I was doing, I started getting very concerned phone calls with people essentially asking me if I was having some sort of a mental break. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, you're 29 years old. You can't just travel for 2 months. You're supposed to be working. And I was like, what is this? And then when I went to Thailand and was traveling, I was surrounded by all these Australians and Brits and people from all over Europe. And when I told them I was traveling for 2 months, their answer was, why only 2 months?
Yes.
And I was like, what a weird juxtaposition. My American friends think I'm having a mental breakdown and I need to go into be in a rubber room. And everybody else from planet Earth says that I'm not traveling enough. And I was like, I don't know what the right answer is. But part of what happened on that trip is I was sort of unpacking my life as I went about this wild adventure. And there was a point when I was at a village in northern Thailand, and these people had no running water. They had no electricity. And I was surrounded by these people who were much happier than I was. And I couldn't answer that question for myself in that moment, but I was like, this doesn't feel right. I am such a spoiled baby compared to these people. Sure. Don't get it. And so when I was going back through Thailand on my way back to Bangkok and then flying home, I sort of had this realization. I was like, I think this problem is not about the external parts of my life. I think it's about me. And just kind of realized, I sat down one day and I had this journal in front of me. It was my 31st birthday. And I wrote two lists. List number one is who I am. List number two is who I want to be. When I wrote the list of who I was, I had a very emotional experience writing it because I didn't like that person. And then the list of who I wanted to be made me very happy and inspired. So what I ended up doing was flying home the next day, and
this is incredible for a 31-year-old to have that level of self-realization. It takes people longer sometimes, but I just wanted to point that out, that like it's amazing you did that early in life.
For sure. So I started. Thank you. But I started crossing off things that were on the list the things I didn't like, and I was like, then stop doing them if you think they're so bad or gross. And I went to the list of things I wanted to do, and the number one thing was be a screenwriter. So I got home. I spent about 2 days, getting my feet under me, and then I went to a Starbucks. I remember my first coffee shop experience, and I said, well, if you want to be a writer, Bradley, you need to write 8 hours a day. And for the first 2 years of being a writer, I would say I wrote about 50 hours a week. I wrote a bunch of bad movies. I took a bunch of classes. I read all the screenwriting books. Like there's that 10,000 hour rule thing that people do.
Yeah.
I've tripled up on that in terms of screenwriting. I've spent more time screenwriting probably, maybe even than acting really. And to date, I've written 30 movies and 3 TV shows, and I don't even know how many short films. But again, it was just something that I fell in love with. And so I was like, oh, this is what was missing, because I was just an actor. And a lot of times when you're an actor, you show up and you wait around a lot. And then they use you and you wait around a lot. And then they use you. Then all of a sudden, when I started writing, when I was waiting around, I was in my trailer writing. And so I was so busy being creative. It felt amazing.
Complete.
There was one time on Lost, totally complete. There was an experience on Lost in Space where I got stuck in my trailer for 16 hours one day doing nothing. And I wrote the entire pilot of a television show because I realized what was happening. I realized that there was too many people and they confused some things and that they weren't going to use me for something they needed me for. And so what I ended up doing was going to the AD and going, where's the coffee? And they go, we'll bring some in for you. I was like, great. And they kept the coffee coming for 16 hours and I just wrote the whole time. Wrote the entire thing. It was amazing. It was quite, but you can imagine if I didn't have that, what would I have done? You know what I mean? And that's part of where my misery was.
The list of things you didn't like. Yeah.
Exactly.
So your first writing work, at least on IMDb, Land of Smiles, reviewers weren't very kind about it in a lot of places, but then Nightmare in Thailand, which to me feels like a retelling or what you really wanted to do. I could be wrong on that. It's being flooded with awards. And what did you learn between these two projects?
It's actually funny because Land of Smiles, that movie and the film festival world ended up winning 35 awards. It was very sort of highly praised by other film people. But the distributor took the movie and decided it was easier to do. It's a suspense thriller with some horror stuff built in, but not a lot. He distributed it under the genre of horror. So when he put it as a horror film fans went nuts. I actually got an email from a few people really angry at me, and I was like, I'm not the I was like, I didn't decide to tell you people this was a horror film because it's not, because they were angry because it wasn't a horror film. So they would like, I got some really disgusting, very angry people living in the basements that sent me emails, and I was like, guys, calm down. This is a suspense thriller. It's what it always was. I put my killer in a clown mask, so the distributor goes, great, it's a horror film. And I was like, it's not. It never was. So the two things are almost exactly the same. Land of Smiles won by far way more awards. But the truth is it was my first movie, so there was a ton of learning that I did in that movie. Tons of learning. I tried to cross blend genres too much in that movie. And the one genre that I tried to put a little bit of pepper into that it didn't necessarily warrant or need was I tried to make some of it too fun, too funny, tried to be too playful. When the movie really just wanted to be a scary suspense thriller, and that's what it was. So some of the choices I made in regards to music and stuff weren't what it should have been. But this is all part of me learning. And also, like, for me, I was a bold It was bold choices. I stand by them. I think they were fun. I found it to be very interesting that other filmmakers gave me so much, accolades and so many trophies. I have a bookshelves full of trophies, and that when the movie came out, people got so angry about it.
I couldn't find any of the award stuff, so I apologize for that. But I'm glad I went here because I love that this story that like it was not you who like pushed it out as a horror movie, and this is kind of the things that can also happen to you when you're not, like you don't know what to look out for necessarily, or whenever like they just, well, you signed the paper, I'm doing what I want.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you realize about life in general, but especially in the film business, is that when you're not dealing with like a Jason Momoa movie, which we would put under the guise of like a big sort of like, I don't even want to say that when you have names in it, the idea that quality exists is just part of it. Money exists is part of it. So when you're in an independent world where you don't have names and you don't have famous actors, it's all kind of like low budget. It's a numbers game. There's tons of these movies made. And so what a lot of the distributors do is they go, what's the path of least resistance? How can I take this movie and just get it, put it out in a way where people won't question it? So ironically, my second movie, Sheltering Season, which has also done well and won some nice awards, was marketed more in line with the way that it was supposed to be, which was this is a suspense thriller. And so the viewership was less. Like Land of Smiles was stolen by everybody on planet Earth and ended up on every pirated website on planet Earth. More people watched it for free than ever paid to watch it. And those people got angry because they thought they were going to watch a horror film and they didn't. And Sheltering Season's watched by far less people. Back. Absolutely. They're like, this is not a horror film. Yeah, exactly.
Was that the first project you worked on with your wife? Future wife, I guess, at that time?
No, we were married then. Were we married? Yeah, I think we were married then. Oh, you know why I know we were married then is because 3 days after our wedding, we had callbacks for Land of Smiles in Los Angeles. She was charmed by that, let me tell you. We'd made a bunch of short films together.
Okay. That's the one thing when I do my research, I want to see the shorts, and they're so hard to find if they're available at all. This is the stuff I really want to get to know, because I think shorts tell you a lot more about an actor, especially if they've made it, or like, they agreed because they like what they read. And I can't watch them. And I wish there was just some site out there that just, these are all the shorts. But I get it.
I do too. And few people have tried to create those websites for short films, and for some reason they just never work. Because when we make a movie, we want people to see them, and unfortunately there's just kind of no place to put them. And then I've never been somebody that's pursued like having a YouTube channel or anything like that. I really need a business manager, for God's sake. So they just end up being on my Vimeo page, or I'm pretty sure if you go on Vimeo, you can see a lot of the short films. They're just sitting there. I just don't, publicly sort of put them out there. Maybe I should. Maybe you're bringing up a good point.
I don't know. I'd like to see. I'd also like to see the movies that were completed and canceled before, and nobody got to see them ever. Just like there's a bunch of them, and I'm curious about the ones we never even hear about. At least on my end, you might get to hear a few of them too. But let's get back on topic, because the next one I think you're going to like this topic a little bit. That one short I did get to see was you and your wife in How to Make It in Hollywood When You're Foreign as Fuck with our former guest Almiro.
Yeah.
There is something I wanted to ask you about, and Josh is going to have to put up a graphic here. Your wife is looking at in another one, the other one. That's a genuine look of love and affection, and you are the greatest man on earth. Is that something you see all the time, or is she really that good of an actress?
Do you see the look right there where she's looking at me?
Yeah,
that's the look I know. The one with the stick. I'm kidding. Listen. My wife is 10,000 times a better person than I'll ever be. She's just a very good human being, very talented actor. And the truth is that I got lucky, and I love my wife, and so I get the love look and I get the shitty look. and the one that I deserve more often than not is the shitty look, because I'm just
I'm
quite
same
honestly
way.
moving too fast, and I screw things up all the time. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's been a reoccurring thing that's happened for like the last 4 months. It's a family thing now. I keep losing my to-go coffee cups, like everywhere, losing them, and I'll just stop and I'll just go buy another one for $30 or whatever. And she over, it was Christmas, I think it was. I lost like my fourth in a row, and she just looked at me and she goes, "You're cut off." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You're not
You're the
allowed to
person
buy."
who made Scanley a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I,
yeah, she was phenomenal in that clip. I am surprised that like Almiro gave you a script where he gets to make out with your wife, and you're like, yeah, we're on. There was a mask, I understand, but no, that was. I loved watching that skit. I actually wanted to dig in more on her because she nailed it. Like her performance was everything that skit needed. I loved it. So you're both working actors. You're both very good at what you do. How do you balance, because you're both parents as well, how do you balance the husband, wife, parents, and acting all over the globe sometimes? How do you balance this, and how does it impact your relationships? Like, it's got to be tough.
well, it's interesting. It's funny you say this, because we just like she's about to go do. She's about to be doing a movie in Canada, and I'm going to be doing a TV show in the States. So we're going to be separate, trying to figure out what to do with the kid, who's going to do some homeschooling, kind of. You know what I mean? It's just a balancing act. It's a juggle, and like as I said, camping is an adventure thing for us. We're kind of an adventurous threesome. So, my son, by the time he was 5 years old, had probably been on, I don't know, 15, 20 flights. And it's just because we're always going around doing stuff. So last summer, I did a movie in Massachusetts. They flew out. I would shoot for 2 days and have 2 days off. And we'd get in the car and we'd drive somewhere for an adventure in Rhode Island or New Hampshire or Cape Cod. So part of the way we make it all work is we do it together. And when we can't do it together, we embrace the, this is, you just look at each other and you're adults and you go, you got to go away for 2 weeks. Okay,
Gotta
cool.
work.
Go do your thing for 2 weeks. And I do think, so there's something interesting that's happened in the world post-COVID, which is a lot of people work from home or whatever else. And it is interesting strain on relationships when people are together all the time. I'm a believer a bit in absence makes the heart grow fonder, because I know that when I'm shooting away for 2 weeks, the two people I'm desperate to go see and be with are her and my son. And sometimes when you're at home for months on end together, you're kind of like, just give me some space. So I think it's actually a really nice balance. It might be a bit of a secret weapon, actually, if I'm being honest.
I've been married 25 years, and when I go camping, at least every other time, I'm solo. I'm alone, like not even friends. It's when I'm away, even a day, 2 days, I miss my wife. I want to come home and be with her more. I think that I do believe in the separate vacations. I want to send her wherever she wants to go, just so she can get away from the house, and I'll take care of the dog. So I think it's healthy, especially after 25 years. She knows all my stories. I'm not coming home. I'm not telling her anything new. But if I go away and experience something new, I can bring that back and tell her how I learned something or grew. Or when we do go, we're not so much adventure campers. I literally like to shut off sometimes in the middle of the woods and not think or see anything. It's my way. But
sure.
I'm always curious about, like, especially both husband and wife being an actor, because it just there can be a lot of stress from what I've heard, and I always want to ask, like, wow,
There's
how do you do it? It's impressive.
It's definitely not easy. It's definitely like, there's been times when I've looked at her and been like, times are tough, and I'll look at her and I'll be like, told you should have married a finance guy. Well, my fault. You made this choice. I'm doing my best. It can be stressful, but if you choose a life in the arts, you also are choosing a very specific sort of lifestyle. I think it's funny. During the strike, I had some interesting conversations. Like, one of them, we were in Boston when I was shooting the movie in Massachusetts, and that film was one of the first ones that got the agreement so we could go back to work. And we were in Boston on a weekend off, and our Uber driver was like, "You're actors?" And I was like, yeah, I'm here doing a movie, whatever. And he's like, oh, and he did this thing, and I go, oh, you think we're spoiled babies, right? Because we're on strike. And he's like, honestly, yeah, I do. And I go, interesting. So for the next 5 minutes, I just kind of told him what it was like to be us and what blue collar sort of working class actors get paid. And he got real quiet and was like, dude, I'm so glad I talked to you. This completely changes the way I view this whole thing. And I was like, I mean, the truth is that the rich people, the Rock Johnsons of the world and Ryan Reynolds of the world are making a lot of money. And the blue collar actor who shows up on NCIS and does one episode is barely paying their bills. There's a big difference. And so when you choose a life in the arts, and first you might think we're headed to become rich and all these other wonderful things, you quickly realize that that's maybe not the reality. But so if you're going to choose to do it, and you're going to choose to marry another person who's choosing to do with their life something that they love and they're passionate about, you take with it that your life won't be normal in that way. And so we embrace the adventures that come with it. That, like, when I shoot a TV show in Mexico City, what I do that I did, they get to come with me on that. We get to have that adventure as opposed to going and buying a new car every 2 years. It's just how it is. Yeah.
2 years. Oh, you are rich. My car is old. Not as old as your Vanagon, but yeah, I know. Yeah. Have a great one. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Be safe out there. Treat each other well.